We continue with our Holy Bible reading to request divine union, THEOSIS, part 35, Numbers chapter 18, Duties of Priests and Levites. Now the Lord spoke to Aaron, saying, You and your sons and your father's house with you shall bear the sins of the holy things, and you and your sons with you shall bear the sins of your priesthood. You shall also bring your brethren, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your father, to yourself, and they shall be joined and added to you, and minister liturgically with you and your sons with you before the tabernacle of testimony. They shall perform your guard duties and the duties of the tabernacle, but they shall not come near the holy vessels and the altar, lest they die, they and you also. They shall be joined to you, and perform the guard duties of the tabernacle of testimony and all the liturgical services of the tabernacle, but an outsider shall not come near you. Thus you shall perform the guard duties of the holy things and the altar, so there may be no more wrath on the children of Israel. Behold, I took your brethren the Levites from the midst of the children of Israel as a gift given to the Lord, to minister liturgically in the tabernacle of testimony. Therefore you and your sons with you shall take care of your priesthood according to all the manner of the altar and within the veil, and you shall minister liturgically as a gift of your priesthood, but the outsider who comes near shall be put to death. Offerings to support the priests. Again the Lord spoke to Aaron, I give you charge over the first fruit from all the things sanctified to me by the children of Israel, and I give these things to you and your sons with you as you share. This shall be an eternal ordinance. So let this be yours from the sanctified holy things of the offerings, from all their gifts, from all their sacrifices, from all their trespass offerings, and from all their sin offerings, and from whatever they return to me. Let all these holy things belong to you and your sons. In the most holy place you shall eat these things. Every male shall eat these things. It shall be holy to you. This also shall be the first fruit for you from their gifts, from all the deposit offerings of the children of Israel. I give these things to you and your sons and daughters with you. This shall be an eternal ordinance. Everyone who is clean in your house shall eat these things. The first fruit of oil, wine, and grain, all their first fruits, whatever they offer to the Lord, I give you these things to you. Whatever first ripe fruit is in their land, which they bring to the Lord, shall be yours. Everyone who is clean in your house shall eat these things. Every devoted thing in Israel shall be yours. Everything that first opens the womb of all flesh, which they bring to the Lord, from man to cattle, shall be yours. Nevertheless, the firstborn of men you shall redeem, and the firstborn of unclean cattle you shall redeem. Now as for the redemption at the age of 1 month, the rate is 5 shekels according to the holy shekel, that is 20 obols. But the firstborn of young bulls, the firstborn of sheep, or the firstborn of goats you shall not redeem. They are holy. You shall pour out their blood towards the altar, and offer their fat as burnt offering for a sweet aroma to the Lord. Their meat shall also be yours, just as the breast of the deposit offering and the right shoulder are yours. Every choice part of the holy things which the children of Israel offer to the Lord, I give to you and your sons and daughters with you as an eternal ordinance. It is an eternal covenant of salt before the Lord, with you and your seed with you. Tithes to support the Levites. Moreover, the Lord said to Aaron, You shall have no inheritance in the land, nor shall you have any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance in the midst of the children of Israel. Behold, I give the children of Levi all the tithes in Israel as an inheritance in return for their liturgical service, whatever they minister liturgically in the tabernacle of testimony. Hereafter the children of Israel shall not come near the tabernacle of testimony, lest they bear guilt and die. But the Levite himself shall minister liturgically in the tabernacle of testimony, and they shall bear their sins. It shall be an eternal ordinance throughout your generations, that in the midst of the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance. For the tithes of the children of Israel, whatever they may offer, as a choice portion to the Lord, I give to the Levites as an inheritance. Therefore I say to them, in the midst of the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance. The Levites' tithe. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak thus to the Levites and say to them, If you receive from the children of Israel a tithe which I gave you from them as your inheritance, then you shall remove it from the Lord's choice portion, a tenth of the tithe. Now your choice portion shall be reckoned to you as the grain from the threshing floor, and as a choice portion of the winepress. Thus you shall then remove the Lord's choice portions from all your tithes, whatever you might receive from the children of Israel, and you shall give from them the Lord's choice portion to Aaron the priest. From all your gifts you shall remove the choice portion for the Lord, or from all the first fruits that which is sanctified from it. Therefore you shall say to them, when you remove the first fruit from it, then all the rest shall be accounted to the Levites as the produce of the threshing floor, and as the produce of the winepress. You may eat it in any place, you and your household, for it is your reward for your liturgical service in the tabernacle of testimony. Now you shall bear no guilt because of it, for you removed the first fruit from it, but you shall not defile the holy things of the children of Israel, lest you die. Chapter 19. Laws concerning purification. Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, This is the injunction of the law, whatever the Lord ordered, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and let them bring you a red heifer without blemish, in which there is no defect, and upon which a yoke has never been placed. You shall give it to Eleazar the priest, and he shall take it outside the camp to a clean place, and they shall slaughter it before him. And Eleazar the priest shall take some of its blood, and sprinkle it 7 times directly in front of the tabernacle of testimony. Then it shall be burned in his sight, its hide, its flesh, and its blood, with its dung shall be burned. The priest shall then take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet, and cast them into the midst of the fire, burning the red heifer. After this the priest shall wash his clothes, bathe his body in water, and come into the camp. The priest shall be unclean until evening. Also the one who burns it shall wash his clothes in water, bathe his body in water, and be unclean until evening. When a man who is clean shall gather up, then the man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the red heifer, and put them away outside the camp in a clean place, and then they shall be kept in reserve for the congregation of children of Israel for a water of sprinkling. It is for purification. Then the one who gathers the ashes of the red heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. It shall be an eternal ordinance to the children of Israel, and to the resident alien who dwells among them. He who touches the dead body of any person shall be unclean 7 days. He shall cleanse himself on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day, then he will be clean. But if he does not purify himself on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day, he will not be clean. Whoever touches the dead body of any person who has died and does not purify himself defiles the tabernacle of the Lord. That soul shall be destroyed from Israel. He shall be unclean, because the water of sprinkling was not sprinkled on him. His uncleanness is still on him. Now this is the law of a man. If a man dies in a house, everyone who comes into the house and whoever is in the house shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel which has no cover fastened on it is unclean. Whoever in the open field touches one who is slain by a sword, or who has died a natural death, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. So for the unclean they should take some of the ashes of the burnt offering of purification, put them in a vessel, and pour running water on them. Then the clean man shall take hyssop and dip it in the water, and sprinkle it upon the house, and upon the vessels of the souls who were there, and upon the one who touched the human bone, or the one slain by the sword, or the one who died a natural death, or the grave. The clean shall sprinkle the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day, and on the 7th day he shall purify himself, wash his clothes, and bathe in water. And he shall be unclean until evening. But the man who is unclean and does not purify himself, that soul shall be utterly destroyed from among the congregation, because he defiled the holy things of the Lord, and the water of purification was not sprinkled on him. He is unclean. This shall be an eternal ordinance for you. He who sprinkles the water of purification shall wash his clothes, and he who touches the water of purification shall be unclean until evening. And whatever the unclean one touches shall be unclean, and the soul who touches it shall be unclean until evening. Chapter 20. Contention at Kadesh. Now the children of Israel, the whole congregation, came into the desert of Sin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh. And Miriam died and was buried there. But there was no water for the congregation, so they gathered together against Moses and Aaron. So the people scoffed at Moses and spoke, saying, Would we had died in the destruction of our brethren before the Lord. Why have you brought up the Lord's congregation to the desert to kill us and our cattle? Why did you also bring us up out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place, a place where nothing is sown, neither figs nor vines nor pomegranates, nor is there any water to drink? So Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the congregation to the door of the tabernacle of testimony and fell on their faces. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Take the rod, and you and your brother Aaron gather the congregation together. Speak to the rock before them, and it shall give its waters. Thus you shall bring them water out of the rock, and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, as the Lord ordered him. Then Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock, and he said to them, Hear me, you disobedient ones. Must we bring water for you out of this rock? Moses then lifted his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod, and water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their cattle drank. But the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, Because you did not believe me to sanctify me before the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this congregation into the land I am giving them. This was the water of contention, because the children of Israel scoffed before the Lord, and he was sanctified among them. Rejection at Edom. Now Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom, saying, Thus says your brother Israel, You know all the hardships that befell us, how our fathers went down to Egypt, and we dwelt in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians afflicted us and our fathers. But we cried out to the Lord, and the Lord heard our voice, and sent his angel, and brought us up out of Egypt. Now here we are in Kadesh, a city just outside your borders. Let us pass through your country. We will not pass through fields or vineyards, nor will we drink water from wells. We will go along the king's highway. We will not turn aside to the right hand or to the left until we pass through your borders. Then Edom said to him, You shall not pass through me, lest I come out against you in war. So the children of Israel said to him, We would go along the mountainous area, but if I or my cattle should drink any of your water, I would pay you. But the matter is nothing. Let us pass among the mountainous area. But he replied, You shall not pass through me. So Edom came out against him with a heavily armed multitude and with a strong hand. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his borders, and Israel turned away from him. The death of Aaron. So the children of Israel, the whole congregation, journeyed from Kadesh and came to Mount Hor. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in Mount Hor, not Mount Hot, Mount Hor. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in Mount Hor by the borders of the land of Edom, saying, Let Aaron be added to his people, for he shall not enter the land I am giving to the children of Israel, because you provoked me at the water of controversy. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son, bring them up to Mount Hor before all the congregation, and strip Aaron of his robe and put it on Eleazar his son, and let Aaron die there and be added to his people. So Moses did as the Lord ordered, and took him up to Mount Hor before all the congregation. Then Moses stripped Aaron of his garments and put them on Eleazar his son, and Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. And afterward Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. Now all the congregation saw Aaron was dead, and all the house of Israel mourned for Aaron 30 days. Chapter 21. Defeating the Canaanites. Now the Canaanite king of Arad, who was dwelling in the desert, heard the news, for Israel came by way of Atharim. Therefore he made war against Israel, and they carried off captives from them as booty. Then Israel made a vow to the Lord and said, If you will indeed deliver this people into my hand, I will anathemize him and his cities. So the Lord listened to the voice of Israel and delivered up the Canaanites, and they anathemized him and his cities. Therefore they called the name of that place Anathema. The Copper Serpent. Then they departed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea, And they went around the land of Edom, and the people became discouraged on the way. So the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us in the desert? For there is no bread nor water, and our soul is weary of this worthless bread. So the Lord sent venomous serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many of the children of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and were saying, We sinned, for we spoke against the Lord and against you. Therefore, pray to the Lord and let him take away the serpent from us. So Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, Make a serpent for yourself and put it on a signal post pole, and it shall be, if a serpent should bite someone, then the one bitten looks at it, he shall live. When the one bitten looks at it, he shall live. So Moses made a copper serpent and put it on a signal pole, and it happened, when a serpent bit anyone, and he looked at the copper serpent, he lived. From Mount Hor to Moab. After this, the children of Israel broke camp and came and camped in Oboth. From there, they broke camp and camped on the other side of the Oboth. Then they broke camp at Oboth and camped at Abarim, which is on the other side in the desert, that is, over against Moab, towards the sunrise. From there they broke camp and camped in the valley of Zared. From there they broke camp and camped on the other side of the Arnon, in the desert which runs along the border of the Amorites. For the Arnon is the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore it is said in the book, The war of the Lord, he set on fire Zob and the brooks of the Arnon, and he established the brooks for air to inhabit near the borders of Moab. Then from there they went to the well, which is the well where the Lord said to Moses, Gather the people together, and I will give them water to drink. Then Israel sang this song about the well. Begin the song, as for the well, rulers dug it, kings of nations hewed it in stone, in their knightly rule, in their kingly rule, when they were the Lord's. Then from the well they went to Matanach, and from Matanach to Nahaliel, from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley, that is, the plain of Moab, which from the top of the quarried rock looks out over against the desert. Defeat of King Sihon and King Og. When Moses sent ambassadors to Sihon, king of the Amorites, with peaceful words, saying, Let us pass through your land, we will journey on the road and not turn either aside either to the field or to a vineyard. We will not drink water from your well. We will journey on the king's highway until we pass beyond your borders. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his borders. So Sihon gathered all his people together and went out to engage Israel in battle in the desert. So he came to Jahaz and engaged Israel in battle. Then Israel struck him with slaughter by the sword and gained dominion over his land, from the Aron to the Jabbok, as far as the sons of Ammon, for Jazer is the border of the sons of Ammon. So Israel took all these cities, and Israel dwelt in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon, and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who fought against the former king of Moab, and took all his land from Aroer to the Arnon. Therefore those who speak in riddles say, Come to Heshbon, to the city of Sihon, so the city of Sihon may be built and made ready. For fire went out from Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sihon. It consumed as far as Moab, and swallowed up the pillars of the Arnon. Woe to you, Moab! You were destroyed, O people of Chemosh. Their sons were sold to be kept alive, and their daughters are captives to Sihon, king of the Amorites. Their seed shall perish from Heshbon to Dibon, and their women again stirred up fire over Moab. Now Israel dwelt in all the cities of the Amorites. Then Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they took it and its villages, and cast out the Amorites dwelling there. After this they turned and went up the road to Bashan. So Og, king of Bashan, and all his people came to meet them in battle at Edrei. Then the Lord said to Moses, Do not fear him, for I have delivered him into your hand, with all his people and his land, and you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon. So they struck him, his sons, and all his people, until there were no survivors left him, and they inherited their land. And now we'll continue with Luke, chapter 23. Before Pilate. Then the whole multitude of them arose and led him to Pilate, and they began to accuse him, saying, We found this fellow perverting the nation, and forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ a king. Then Pilate asked him, saying, Are you the king of the Jews? He answered him and said, It is as you say. So Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowd, I find no fault in this man. But they were the more fierce, saying, He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, beginning from Galilee to this place. Before Herod. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked if the man were a Galilean. And as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at the time. Now, when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad, for he had desired for a long time to see him, because he had heard many things about him, and he hoped to see some miracle done by him. Then he questioned him in many words, but he answered him nothing. And the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him. Then Herod, with his men of war, treated him with contempt and mocked him, arraying him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him back to Pilate. That very day Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, for previously they had been at enmity with each other. Jesus or Barabbas. Then Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and rulers and the people, said to them, You have brought this man to me as one who misleads the people. And indeed, having examined him in your presence, I have found no fault in this man concerning those things of which you accuse him. No, neither did Herod, for I sent you back to him, and indeed nothing deserving of death has been done by him. I will therefore chastise him and release him, for it was necessary for him to release one of them at the feast. And they all cried out at once, saying, Away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, who had been thrown into prison for a certain rebellion made in the city and for murder. Pilate, therefore, wishing to release Jesus, again called out to them, but they shouted, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. Then he said to them the third time, Why, what evil has he done? I have found no reason for death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. But they were insistent, demanding with loud voices that he be crucified, and the voices of these men and of the chief priests prevailed. So Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they requested, and he released to them the one they requested. So for rebellion and murder had been thrown into prison, but he delivered Jesus to their will. The procession to Golgotha. Now as they had led him away, they laid hold of a certain man, Simon the Cyrenian, who was coming from the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Jesus. And a great multitude of the people followed him, and women who also mourned and lamented him. But Jesus turned to them and said, Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For indeed the days are coming in which they will say, Blessed are the barren, wombs that never bore, and breasts which never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. For if they do these things in the green wood, what will be done in the dry? The compassionate Christ. There were also 2 other criminals led with him to be put to death. And when they had come to the place called Calvary, where they crucified him, and the criminals, one on the right hand and the other on the left, then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And they divided his garments and cast lots, and the people stood looking on. But even the rulers with them sneered, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Christ, the chosen of God. The soldiers also mocked him, coming and offering him sour wine, and saying, If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. And an inscription also was written over him in letters of Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. This is the King of the Jews. two thieves, two ways. One of the criminals who were hanged blasphemed him, saying, "If you are the Christ, save yourself and us." But the other answering rebuked him, saying, "Do you not even fear God, seeing you are under the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said to Jesus, "Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "Assuredly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." Darkness and death. Now it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness all over the earth until the 9th hour. 6th hour meaning noon, from noon until 3 p.m. Until the 9th hour, then the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was torn in two. And when Jesus had cried out with a loud voice, he said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." Having said this, he breathed his last. So when the centurion saw what had happened, he glorified God, saying, "Certainly this was a righteous man." And the whole crowd who came together to that sight, seeing what had been done, beat their breasts and returned. But all his acquaintances and the women who followed him from Galilee stood at a distance watching these things. Now behold, there was a man named Joseph, a council member, a good and just man. He had not consented to their decision and deed. He was from Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who himself was also waiting for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down, wrapped it in linen, and laid it in a tomb that was hewn out of the rock, where no one had ever lain before. That day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew near. When the women who had come with him from Galilee followed after, and they observed the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and fragrant oils, and they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. Chapter 24. The women find the tomb empty. Now on the first day of the week, that means Sunday, the first day of the week, day of the Lord, is Sunday. The first day of the week, very early in the morning, they and certain other women with them came to the tomb, bringing the spices which they had prepared, but they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. Then they went in and did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. And it happened, as they were greatly perplexed about this, that behold, two men stood by them in shining garments. Then, as they were afraid and bowed their faces to the earth, they said to them, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but is risen. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still in Galilee, saying, 'The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and the third day rise again.'" And they remembered his words. Then they returned from the tomb and told all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them, who told these things to the apostles. And their words seemed to them like idle tales, and they did not believe them. But Peter arose and ran to the tomb, and stooping down, he saw the linen clothes lying by themselves, and he departed, marveling to himself at what had happened. Jesus appears on the road to Emmaus. Now behold, two of them were traveling the same day to the village called Emmaus, which was 7 miles from Jerusalem. These two people are Cleopas and the Apostle Luke, who's writing this gospel. The two men were Cleopas and Luke. Okay, now behold, two of them were traveling the same day to the village called Emmaus, which was 7 miles from Jerusalem, and they talked together of all these things which had happened. So it was, while they conversed and reasoned, that Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were restrained, so they did not know him. And he said to them, "What kind of conversation is it that you have with one another, as you walk and are sad?" Then the one whose name was Cleopas answered and said to him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem, and have you not known the things which happened there in these days?" And he said to them, "What things?" So they said to him, "The things concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and words before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and their rulers delivered him to to be condemned to death and crucify him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, today is the third day since these things happened. Yes, and certain women of our company who arrived at the tomb early astonished us. When they did not find his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. And certain of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see. Then he said to them, O foolish ones, how slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. Then they drew near to the village where they were going, and he indicated that he would have gone further, but they constrained him, saying, Abide with us, for it is towards evening, and the day is far spent. And he went in to stay with them. Now it came to pass, as he sat at the table with them, that he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished from their sight. And they said to one another, Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us on the road, and while he opened the scriptures to us? So they rose up that very hour and returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 and those who were with them gathered together, saying, The Lord is risen indeed, and has appeared to Simon. And they told about the things that had happened on the road, and how he was known to them in the breaking of bread. Jesus appears to the apostles. Now, as they said these things, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them, and said to them, Peace to you. But they were terrified and frightened, and supposed that they had seen a spirit. And he said to them, Why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? Behold my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit does not have flesh and bones as you see I have. Now when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. But while they still did not believe for joy and marveled, he said to them, Have you any food here? So they gave him a piece of broiled fish with some honeycomb, and he took it and ate in their presence. Jesus enlightens the apostles. Then he said to them, These are the words which I spoke to you while I was still with you, that all things must be fulfilled which are written in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms concerning me. And he opened their understanding that they might comprehend the scriptures. Then he said to them, Thus it is written, and thus it was necessary for the Christ to suffer and to raise from the dead the third day, and that repentance and remission of sins should be preached in his name to all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. And you are witnesses of these things. Behold, I send the promise of my Father upon you, but tarry in the city of Jerusalem until you are endued with power from on high. The Ascension. And he led them out as far as Bethany, and he lifted up his hands and blessed them. Now it came to pass, while he was blessing them, that he was parted from them and carried up into heaven. And they worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in the temple, praising and blessing God. Amen. And we'll continue with the next reading of the Gospel of John. God bless you. Thank you for your support. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because We help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.